What's up guys, welcome back to the For Those Go video. This channel is where we discuss and learn new skills around the topics of design and development. If you want to grow your skills and learn new things that are coming up, please subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. In this video, we'll be learning about how we can create a full stack application from ground up, and we'll be using Remix for our application, which is a full stack React framework for building interfaces. And let's quickly also talk about the topics that we are discussing and learning in this particular video. So we'll be diving into database configuration with MongoDB Atlas, and also diving into data modeling and setting up relations among data models inside of our application. And we'll be setting up authentication with session-based auth using a famous library called remix-auth library. And obviously we'll be protecting our route with protected routes with remix-auth. And we'll be using Prisma ORM and MongoDB Atlas hosted in the cloud, and fold styles. We'll be using Tailwind styles, and there are so much more that we could learn from this video. So let's take a look into the application that we are building together. So this is the application that we are building together, and we just have simply 3 routes for our application. To be simple, we have a sign up, we have a sign in route, sign up, sign in, and a homepage route. So that's a total of 3 routes. And if you take a look into go to this and hit on this, and it redirects back to the login screen because it's a protected route. So in other words, our home screen is a protected route. So to enter home screen, we need to create an account. So let's go ahead and fill this form and create an account. Let's go ahead and click on create an account. So after clicking on the create an account, we get redirect back to the home screen. So this is our home screen, and there's nothing complicated. We are starting off from something simple, and it's basically a task tracking application. For example, you have certain categories. In default, we have others selected, and you can select and add further categories to this. For example, I have home. The category is home, and the task for my home is take my dog for a walk. And after we write that particular task, we can add a task. And after adding tasks, our task is populated here, take my dog for a walk. And we can add furthermore tasks. For example, buy some veggies, and add a task. And we can see we have 2 tasks added under the category of home, and we can change the category. In others, we could do like take some medicine and hit on add task, and we can see our task is populated here. So we can further go ahead and delete some task. For example, we can delete this particular task, and also this particular task, and also this particular task. So there will be no task for us. And furthermore, we can just log out for the application. So this is pretty much of the application that we are building together, along with the protected routes, and just 3 routes, and starting off with something simple. All right, so let's begin. Remix official documentation, and inside here I want to widget get started. And to get started, we can first, there are a couple of prerequisites. You need Node.js version greater than is equal to 16, npm 7 or greater, and a code editor. And we have all of them. So let's go ahead and create started with this particular command, npx create remix add latest. And we don't want to really make the use of any templates, so we just will be focusing on starting off a project from scratch. So I navigated to the design directory, desktop works for now, and hit on npx create remix add latest. And for the project, what we want to call is full stack remix app, and hit enter. And we want to start with something basic, so that's just the basics, and we want to deploy it probably to Cloudflare pages, which I personally admire, but Vercel is also a great choice, so we'll stick it with Vercel for now. And we will stick with TypeScript, but I'm personally not so really great at TypeScript, but we will stick with TypeScript. And we will install all the dependencies that we need. So we have already created the project, so let's go ahead and clear this out. and take a look into our code editor. And this is pretty much scratch boilerplate project that we are taking a look into. And we can go to the app, and inside there we have routes. We just have one route, which is the index. And yeah, this is the main page of the application. Probably the main page is just a root page, but this is a page that we will be looking at in the browser. For now, let's go ahead and do npm run dev so that we could spin up the local server locally. And let's hit on local. All right, so we have this particular project and it's looking good, but we want to further add some configuration and build our app on top of this. So let's go ahead and add some additional dependencies that we need. First of all, what I want to do is I want to start with adding up styles using Tailwind. So let's go ahead and copy some of the commands that we need to get started with Tailwind inside of our Remix. So these are pretty much command that we need, but it says that it has something here. So I'll just hit enter. After all the packages has been installed, we can further on go ahead and install another or run another command with npx tailwind css init -b, which will initialize tailwind inside of our project. So after hitting enter, we will be having this particular file, which is tailwind config.js, which is awesome. And now what we want to do is we want to further change the config as per our requirements. So I'll just go to our config and copy in some config that we need. So these are pretty much all the config that we will need from Tailwind CSS. And we could probably rename this to .ts probably. So I'll just rename this to ts, and this looks happy. What we want to do is we want to create a styles folder. So inside of our app, we will create another folder and call it styles. And inside that particular styles, let's create a new file and call it tailwind.css. And inside tailwind.css, we want to add in the base templates, base styles from Tailwind, and go ahead and close it. So what we want to do next is import Tailwind inside of our project. So inside of our root.tsx, we want to go down here and import styleset, and this would be styles from Tailwind. And obviously we want to make the use of this particular styleset that we imported. So let's go ahead and change our link function to this, so that we could import Tailwind and make the use of styleset, and we just pass in styleset right in here. Okay, so after that's done, we should be pretty much good enough to get started with working with Tailwind. So let's go ahead into our main route, which is index.tsx, and inside here we want to remove everything that we see here, and let's add in a couple of styles. And let's also remove this, and let's add a style. And after adding that particular style, let's go ahead and spin up our local server with npm run dev, and this should be working as expected. Another thing that I want to mention and I missed out is we need to add Tailwind, which is true, inside of our remix config.js. Well, and with this change all saved, we should be taking a look into the red text, and which says that Tailwind and Remix is working fine. So inside of our project, what we want to do is we want to create a MongoDB Atlas, which is basically a cloud service for MongoDB, which is database that we are going to use. And for naming our project, we will call it a Fullstack Remix. And so that would be Fullstack underscore remix probably. And let's go ahead and hit on next, and let's go ahead and create a project. After creating a project, we'll build a database, and for the database we gonna use a free plan currency, and region probably around Japan would be nice, but I want to just leave it up to the free plan, which is Virginia, is also fine. And just go ahead and hit and create. do the captcha thing and auto generate the password, copy it, and create a user. And we want to make the use of cloud environment and also add my current IP address there and finish and close. Meanwhile, when the database is being prepared, we'll go to our application, and inside of our application we can just create an item for now, and we want to create two new files. And the files are, first of all, we want to create .env.example, and this file is just the example of environment variables that we need. And inside there we want to grab in a couple of environment variables that we will be defining, and this is all the environment variables that we'll be needing, which is database URL and the session secret. And let's go ahead and close it. And for our next file, we will just add .env, and inside that particular .env we will be adding that particular database URL that's generated for us. So let's go ahead and hit on connect and go to drivers, and we'll be obviously sticking with Node.js. And for our URL, we'll be grabbing this particular URL that we see here, which is our connection string, and hit on close. So we'll be grabbing that particular URL and pasting right here, and which would be database URL, and we will write our project name there in the last, which would be something like this. And here it goes the password. So we have copied the password before, so I'll just go ahead and paste in the password here and add some changes to the database URL. Meanwhile, we can also define some session secret. So for the session secret, you can write anything here. So I can just add anything, make the change to database URL as needed. After we are done with the database, let's go ahead and stop the server, because we want to communicate our database with the help of Prisma ORM. And Prisma is really an awesome tool. I personally really love and admire. So we'll install Prisma, has a dev dependency with -d flag, and let's go ahead and hit on enter. And after that's done, we want to initialize Prisma so that we could make the use of the MongoDB provider. So we will also use this npx prisma init -- data source -- provider, and that's MongoDB. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And after Prisma and MongoDB provider has been added, we can check that particular thing inside our package.json file, and we should have our Prisma file there. And inside this schema we have provider, which is MongoDB, and that's really awesome. Let's go ahead and change our schema so that we could define some schemas. So inside of our schema.prisma, we will make a couple of changes. We'll introduce another model and call it user, because we want the user model, and inside that particular user model we want to paste in the model that I created before, which is a user will have an ID, and will have an created add date, will have updated add date, and an email, password, and a name. So new users needs to create that particular data structure that we define here. So after that's done, let's go ahead and save it. And what we want to do is we want to run Prisma. To run what we have changed, we can go to here and write npx prisma db push and make the changes to our database. If you have correctly added your environment variables with the MongoDB connection string, you shouldn't face any errors up to this point. And let's also generate our schema that we added. And after that two particular command, now we can visualize our models with the help of npx prisma studio, which is a GUI that helps us to visualize the data models inside of our Prisma. And inside there we can see all models, and we just have one model for now. And inside that particular user we should have a couple of data models that we have added before. which is all ID created at, updated at, email, password, and name, which is awesome. This means that our Prisma and MongoDB at last is connected well. Let's go ahead and create a couple of routes that we need. As we discussed before, we just need a couple of routes, which is just 3 routes for now. So I'll just go ahead and add a login route. So it would be login.tsx. And inside this login.tsx, we want to export the default function and call it login. And that particular function returns some JSX. So we'll add in, this is login page. Okay, so let's go ahead and save it. And same goes to our next route, which is sign up. So we'll add a sign up route and call it signup.tsx. And inside there, we will just call this sign up. And this is sign up. With this change, let's go ahead and run our server with npm run dev, and we should see some changes inside of our application. Let's go ahead and refresh that, and we could now widget login, and which is this is login, and we can also widget sign up, which is this is sign up. All right, so our routing works, and thanks to the file-based routing. So inside of our login page, what we want to add now is we want to add a form. For example, that particular form will submit some data inside of our database. So let's go ahead and add some forms here. To start with our form, we need a couple of components that we need. So let's go ahead and create a new folder and call it components. And inside of components, what we want to create is a new file. And that particular new file would be called layout.tsx, and that could be just lowercase. And inside that particular layout.tsx, we want to add in a couple of wrappers. For example, this is an application wrapper with a height of height of the screen, width is full, and background is a bit yellow with 100. And inside there, we will add in all the React Node children that we have. And let's go ahead and save it, and that's pretty much fine. Let's go ahead and create another component and call it textfield.tsx. So this textfield.tsx will have a defined interface, and it will take in some prop, and the type of prop that it will take in is defined in this particular interface. So it's called field form props, and it will take HTML4 label, type, value, and onChange handler, which is a function that takes an argument of any type and that returns any. I try to not to use any in some of my code base that I write, but I'm really bad at writing strictly typed stuffs. So this is interface, and we have destructured everything here, and we have used the Tailwind classes to spice up our styles using some class names, and that label which is destructured from here, that would be receiving by this particular component, and that's written here. That's the label, an onChange handler, and a type, and HTML4, the name HTML4, and the value. So after this much change, our text field component would be fine for implementation. So let's go ahead and implement it inside of our login screen. So I'll just go ahead and close it, and inside of a login screen, I can now import some couple of components that I created before, and that is layout and text field. So we could just import 2 components, that is layout and the text field. Inside of our login.tsx, I added the import for layout and use that particular layout, and here we added a couple of class names for Tailwind, as we won't be diving into Tailwind because it's not Tailwind discussion, but instead how we can make the use of Fullstack Remix app. And we made the use of form, and that particular form will take in the text field that we defined before, and that text field is email at the password, and that's pretty much it. That's email and password for login screen. And we also used handle input change. We will listen to the input and that the user is going to do. And that particular input change will just set the form with the previous form uh, values and the field, and that would update zip form data. And inside form data we have this particular piece of state where we'll be tracking email and password. And also we made the use of action data uh, from use action data hook from Remix. And also we have already imported the loader and the action. And as loader and action needs to return something, I just returned an empty string for now, and we'll come to that later on. So these are a couple of changes that we need in order to get started taking a look into the interface for login form. Also, we have imported the link where if they are a new user, don't have an account, they can go to the sign up screen, and they have an account, they can go back to the login screen. This is how form fields work inside Remix. We don't have any on submit handler. Instead, we have a button type submit, and we have this form method post that will invoke our action and loaders. So this is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and save it and take a look at the browser, and let's go to login. And this is our form with a couple of warnings that we'll be ignoring. And yeah, and we can hit on sign up, and this goes to the sign up screen, and we can go to back to the login screen inside of sign up screen. So we'll be creating now the interface for sign up screen. So let's go ahead to our files, and inside this particular place where we have created a route for our sign up, inside there we want to make the interface for sign up. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to import a couple of files, a couple of functions and files that we created before. So I'll just import and use everything that needs to be imported. So we have React and use state from React, and we also made the use of version 2 meta function, and because it's migrating, it's switching to version 2, so we are using version 2 meta function, import action function, a JSON loader function from remix node, and make the use of use action data and link from remix.run react, and also imported layout and input input text field that we created before. And after that's done, we also need to create a couple of constants so that we could make the use of the meta, which is version 2 meta function, and add in some meta tags. For now, it's just a title, so we could add some other further meta tags here for this specific single page sign up. And we also made the use of action, which is a type of loader function, and we return an empty string because it needs to return something. And we also define an action, which is a type of action function. After that's done, we can now dive into creating or making the use of the forms. So these are the form that we'll be using for the sign up, which is email, password, and name. And this is the state, which is the use state from the React use state hook that we are using to track the state, which is email, password, and name. And we also had input handle input j something from the login screen, so I have used that. And inside this return, now we can make the use of layout and text field and all the form that Remix provides us with. So these are I made the use of layout, which is wrapped for the entire component inside. And we have this form, which is a method of post, because during sign up we are posting some data from inside of our backend. So and here we add an s2, create an account, and make the use of text field, and that text field should pass these properties or these props: HTML4 type, label, value, and on change. And another field, text field for email, another text field for password, and we also have added on change handler to each of our text field so that we could make the use of the use state behind the scene and track our value for name, email, and password. And ultimately, we add a button with the type of submit, and this is how we could submit a forms in Remix. So we could also go back to the login screen if we are in the wrong page. After that's done, let's go ahead and save it. And if we take a look at the browser, then we can see our form is reflected here, and we can type in any of the data that we need, and we can go back to sign in and go back to sign up. To get started, let's start with the sign up screen because we need to create a user before logging in that user. So inside of our sign up, we have added a couple of boilerplate UI code that we need. So first things first, let's create some utilities. So inside of our app, we will create a new folder and call it utils. And inside there, we want to create a new file and we'll call it auth.server. .server would tell Remix that this is a server code to execute. So this is particularly bundled in the server. So inside of our auth server.ts, we want to import a couple of packages that we need. Before we import a couple of packages, we want to also create another file, which is session.server. And inside session.server, what we want to do is we want to make the use of create cookie session storage from Remix.run node and create a constant. And probably I misspelled this because I can't see some highlighting there. So session server.ts, and this should be auth server.ts. So this is how you create a cookie storage with Remix. And it takes in a couple of options, and that options is cookie, and inside here we add a couple of properties. First is name, the name of the cookie that's there. So inside of your developer tools, you can see underscore session as a key for your cookie. So that's the name. And same site lags is a property that we need, and path is the root path, and HTTP is true. Secrets is access from a process.env session secret that we created inside of our .env file right in here. And secure if it's a node environment of production that we want to make the secure to true. So and the max age is defined for a cookie, and we export a cookie storage. And this is a standard way of creating session storage. So let's go ahead and save it. And inside of our auth server.ts, we want to make the use of that particular file that we created, which is session server. And also we want to import authenticator and authorization error from remix-auth. And meanwhile, let's go to our file, and we want to create a new file and call it prisma.server.ts. So this file would be just a standard Prisma server communication snippet that you can find in the official documentation and in the internet overall. And to explain this, if the process.environment is in production, we want to connect to a new Prisma client instance. If it's not in production, we want to make the use of this new Prisma client instance and connect to that. So it's basically what it's doing is, if it's in development mode, we don't want to really restart our server every time. So you can also see some comments here. So now let's go back to our file and add in a couple of imports. And these are a couple of imports that we need. Also, probably we are not installing the remix-auth package. So let's go ahead and install the remix-auth package. So npmi remix-auth, and we probably also need to install remix-auth form as well. So after this installation, I'll also add npmi remix-auth form, And meanwhile, we need to hash our password using bcrypt. So we will use bcrypt to hash our password so that we don't save passwords as a plain string. So after installing all the package there, we can also import bcrypt now inside of our auth server and make the use of these packages that we imported. So first thing first, let's create a constant, and that particular constant would hold the session secret. If no session secret is passed or no session secret is defined, we just throw an error, session secret must be sent. After that's done, we will create another constant and call it authenticator, which is the kind of like instance for our authenticator from the remix-auth package, and we want to pass session storage right inside here. So after that's done, we want to first of all create a form strategy. Create a constant and call it form strategy, and that particular strategy, form strategy, will be new form strategy, and which is an asynchronous function which ultimately returns a user. And also we want to make the use of this authenticator.use and use the form strategy, and which is the name of form, and ultimately export this authenticator that we created. So inside of our form strategy, we can add in a couple of code snippet that I have already written out. First of all, we are creating a constant of email and password. We are getting it from the form, which is form.get email and form.get password, because in order to sign up a user, we want to get, and probably it says we need to install the types for bcrypt. So let's go ahead and install the types for bcrypt as well. And we can see we have this email and password. If we have and we just make a query to Prisma where the user, do you find unique user with this email. If we don't find the user, we are saying that this is a wrong email and we don't find any user. And if the password matches, and then we are returning this user. If the password doesn't match, we are just throwing a new authorization error. This is how it would work. So probably npmy -- save dev types bcrypt. I don't know why this is throwing off. Okay, so that error is gone away. So what we can now further do is we can go to our sign up. This covers some of the sign in steps as well. So let's go to sign up, and we want to import that particular file that we created. So this exports authenticator, so we can import authenticator. Before that, I want to create a new folder, new file, and call it user.server.ts, and this particular file will hold the authentication for new users. And we want to basically import bcrypt and use Prisma, which is from Prisma.server that we created before. And looks like our types has been defined. So let's go to our utils and make a new file, types.server, and this will hold all the types that we are defining for our new user. And the new user would have this particular type, and the new user would have a type of email, a password, and name, which is all strings. Let's go ahead and save it, and that error goes away, and we can now go ahead with the rest of the code. And we just create a constant and call it create user. That's an asynchronous function which takes in the user with this particular interface. And we first of all has the password, and we just invoked prisma.user.create and passed in this data, which is email, password, and name. So this would create a new user in the DB and return us the new user ID with the new user email and the name of the user. And after that's done, we are okay enough to import this create user inside of our signup. So let's go ahead and import our create user and also the authenticator that we defined before. And after that's imported, now let's go to our action function. So inside of our action function, what we can do here is we can get the form fields from our template down below, which is inside of layout. So let's go ahead and access that particular data. Our form request.form data, and the action is form.get action, because we have a couple of actions that needs to be defined, but we just have one form, so it's just one action. We don't need to define many cases for now, so it's just one action. And the email, we can get it from form.get email, password form.get password, and the name form.get name. So these are basically all the things that we have here, which is this particular field that we defined here, which is text field. We have a basic kind of validation here going on. So if the type of action is not string, or type of email is not string, a password and name is not string, we just call that invalid form data. But definitely we are not covering a lot of form validation and or schema validation, but you should do furthermore validation to this particular form. So and ultimately we are making the use of this particular function we created inside here, which is a create user, which takes in the user of this particular data type, interface. We just has the password and save it in the DB. So that's how we do it. And ultimately we are returning authenticator.authenticate, and we want to authenticate. If it's the success authentication, we want to success redirect to root homepage. If it's failure, we want to go to the sign up page. And we also added a context of form data and its form. So with this in place, we are pretty much good to go with our action function. Now let's go ahead and define our loader function. Create a constant, call it user, and if that user particularly is authenticated, we want to redirect it to the home screen. So in case if the user is logged in and they visit sign up, they are redirected to the home screen. So this is what it does, and the loader always executes in the server. So with this in place, we should be good enough with our sign up form. Let's go ahead and run npm run dev and go to sign up, and let's sign up with a new user, and let's go ahead and create an account. After hitting on create an account, we get redirect back to the home screen, because I suppose it's authenticated, because we could see inside of our application and inside of cookies we can see underscore session, which means that our session is working and we are authenticated going back to our main screen. But the tricky part is that we could delete this session. For example, let's go ahead and delete it and hit on refresh, and we don't have a session created. And let's go ahead and run that again and hit on refresh. We could still visit the home route. So we want to protect this particular route, so that only authenticated users enter this particular route, which is the home route. For that to happen, we can go to our home route, or before that we could just finish up doing things with our login page. So inside of our login page, there are a couple of things that's left over. Let's go ahead and import authenticator that we defined before, which helps us to authenticate our application. And probably this is the only import that we need. And inside of our action function, what we want to do is we want to basically check whether the form is really authenticated or not. The data entered in form is authenticated or not. If that's a success authentication, we redirect it to the home screen. If that's failure, we redirect to the login screen. And we can further make the use of protected routes inside of our login screen with this approach, where we created a constant, call it user, and we wait for authenticator.authenticated. So if the user is authenticated, then we success redirect to the home screen. If that's not authenticated, we should be inside of failure redirect or this particular screen login itself. So this is pretty much all the changes, I suppose, that we need. So let's go ahead and check this out in the browser. Enter here, go to sign in screen, and I want to hit credentials, enter credentials that I just added before. So I'll just add the credentials and hit on login. And if it's a success, it should redirect us to the home screen, which it did. And we can see the session is inside of our cookies, which means that we are successfully authenticated with a session inside of our browser. That's really awesome. Now, what we can do here is we can go to our main route, and inside of our main route, we could protect this route. The users who are not authenticated won't be able to visit this route. For that to happen, what we want to do is we want to just import that particular authenticator that we created inside of utils of the server, and we want to make the use of that particular authenticator inside of our loader. And for that, we just define a loader. Particular loader is a type of loader function, and we check that user is authenticated. If it's failure redirect, we redirect it to the login screen. So with this much change, we should be let's go ahead and delete it. Let's go ahead and refresh. As you can see, we are not able to go to that particular home route. Instead, we are redirect back to the login screen. So let's write in home route, and we can see it redirects back to the login screen. So this is really simple and easy enough for us so that we could implement the protected route for our home page. So we have a lot to cover inside of our home route, which is the root route. So inside here, what I want to do is I want to import a couple of imports that we need. So these are all the imports that we need, and I've written it already for you guys. And we really haven't really created this particular folder, which is task.server file. So inside of our utils, we want to create that particular file and call it task.server.ts. And inside here, we want to import Prisma and also a JSON from a Remix.run node, and also import the types that we need to define for our jobs, and also import types. And we probably haven't really created that. So let's, inside of our app, we want to create a directory and call it types. And inside there, we want to create a new file and call it jobs. So inside of our jobs.ts, we define an interface, a message. For now, it's just any category, could be of type category, which is just these values, which is office, others, and home. And posted by is any for now. So probably I should avoid using a lot of any. And inside of our task.server.ts, first of all, we want to get the task of a particular user, and that particular user is the logged in user. And for that, let's create a constant and call it get my task. And that particular get my task is an asynchronous function which takes in user ID as argument. And if we have the user ID, we execute this. If we don't have the user ID, the user doesn't have a task. So in order to query the task, first of all, we need to create a task. So let's go ahead and make some changes inside of our schema.prisma. So inside here, we want to make some changes and introduce tasks model. All right. So after adding some task model, which should contain ID, created at, updated at, message, category, task ID, and posted by. And this posted by user has a relation to this particular task ID, which is this, which means that one particular user, which is this particular user, will have a list of tasks, and that list of tasks is this particular ID. So that's basically a user ID that we are trying to map and set a relation and posted by a user, and that particular user would be this particular task ID. This is how we could query, set up a relation in order to a user should have a list of tasks, and that particular list of tasks can be queried to the database using Prisma, and that would be done through task ID. And with this change, we need to now um, run Prisma generate and a couple of things because we did some schema changes. Let's go ahead and add npm Prisma db push, and probably npm should be npx Prisma db push, and also npx Prisma generate to generate all the needed files and tables for us. After that's done, we can go ahead and clear it and do npm run dev and continue with our files. All right, so our schema is changed so that we could query some task. So inside of our task, we could now see that this particular include should go away. We can see that the red lines is gone because we can now have our task. So I've also added a couple of other functions which I will go through, which is create task, and that particular create task would take in category, message, and posted by, and it's the type defined as a task data. And if we have like these things passed in, then we are querying prisma.task.create, the data is this. And if we have a task ID, then we return a JSON. If we don't have a task ID, we return an error, an object with the error property. So and ultimately we if this is successful, we get a task by ID, which is a payload that's returned as a JSON as a response. So this is pretty much how we deal with create task. And we also are going to cover delete a task. So delete a task will take in an ID, and it's typed as any for now, but it should be probably string, but I'll just add it any for now. And it's a constant, create a constant, and we await for Prisma the task.delete, where the ID is the ID that's passed in. If we don't have the task by ID, then we throw an error. If we have the task by ID, we have the success for tasks deleted. And this is how we deal with the task server.ts file. And inside of our this particular file here that we added, now we could make the use of get my task, which is we defined this particular function before inside of task server, which just takes in the user ID, and that particular user ID is the authenticated user. So that's why we check authenticator.authenticate, and if there is a user, it should return a user. If there's not, it would redirect to the login screen, and we passed in this particular user ID for get my task. And also inside of our action function, we define a couple of switch cases. For example, we have a case for logout, we have a case for new task, we have a case for delete. Remix will call this particular action function every time in every form in this particular route. For example, inside the index.tsx, we have 3 different forms, and that 3 different forms will be a logout form, a new form, and a delete form. So that's why we need cases here. And this is how we deal with multiple forms inside a single route or pages inside of Remix. And if that's the case for logout, we just return await authenticator to logout, and which would redirect to the login screen, and that's easy as it is. And if it's new, then we just get what we have there in the form data, which is the category and the message. And we want to create a new task by calling this particular function created by us, and that takes in category, message, and also posted by is connected to the user ID. And also delete is the same thing, that we just pass in the ID that's deleted, and we access this particular ID from the form. So for the form, we haven't really used any forms here. So let's go ahead and add some forms. So for our forms, we can add a first form and call it task form. So inside of our components, we'll create a new file and call it taskform.tsx. And inside this task form, we import a couple of things that we need, which is a form from a React-run, Remix.run React, and categories. And we add this particular form, capital F, imported from Remix, and the method is post, because we want to post this particular form, and we want to map these categories and have our options here, and the default value is the first item in the category. And also we want to add in the button, which is type of submit, and the value is new. So this is also important, that you should add a value new, because we are making that particular new value inside of our cases right in here. So you can see cases new, and we execute this piece of code. So that's why that new is important. So with this particular change, we are comfortable enough to import task form inside of our application root. So we import task form along with some of other components we will definitely create, which is task list, which just takes in prop that task form created. And also we need to define this task list prop. So let's go to our components and create another one, which is task list.tsx. So inside of our task list, we imported the capital F form from React, because we are also dealing with forms inside of our task list, because we want to delete a task. For that, we will be using a form, and that particular snippet looks something like this, and which is a method of post, and we have the value for delete. And also we made the use of this particular icon, which we'll be adding. And another important thing is we add an input type of hidden, and we have the value of ID that's provided here. So this particular value ID can be accessed inside of our index.ts later on. So let's also import or install the React icons. Probably I also missed out. If we take a look at here, we can see we can now use task form, task list, and task list props. Let's go ahead and use this task form. So inside of our this particular heading, after we have task list app, and here we have this comment, let's add a task form there. And also we want to render the list of tasks that's by the user. So to add a list of tasks by the user, we want to access user task.task. If it has some length, then we render this piece of JSX. If it doesn't, then we add no task. So that would be user task.task.map, and then the task is the type of task is task list prop that's defined here, which is category, misses, and string, and we return the list of tasks, and the task list takes in a prop of key, ID, message, and category. So you can see ID, message, and category, and key is needed for React to work. So this is how we deal with working with forms along with multiple forms inside here. So inside of our delete case, what I wanted to highlight is this constant call ID, which get in form.getID, and that particular ID is passed into delete task that we define here inside of task.server, and that would just call Prisma task.delete. And we have this particular delete ID here. If we take a look into the task, let's go to task list, and we can see we have this value of ID. Basically, we are accessing this particular name and the value inside of our case of delete, which is id form.getID. That's how we deal with deleting forms. And if none of the case matches, then we are eventually default to returning null. After this much change, we should be good enough to take a look into the application and test it out locally. So let's go ahead and run this with npm run dev, and inside here we can firstly sign in with the account that's created before. Let's go ahead and log in, and as you can see there are a couple of styles glitches here, but we can see it says welcome and it's my name. And furthermore, we can add some task, and that would be under the category of office. Add a task, and this particular task is populated here, and we want to add further more task. For example, this is a task for my home, and after adding task we can see our task has been added to the form. So we could further go ahead and delete this task, and after hitting delete it's gone, and after hitting delete it's gone as well. And if we don't have task, we have no task there. So guys, in this video we learned about creating an application using auth and database operations. I hope you learned something new from this. I have shared the repository down in the description down below. Obviously, in this video, we haven't really covered the topics like error handling and form validation, but that's really a needed topic if we are thinking of a production application. So let's go ahead and hit on logout, and we go back to this particular route, and our route is being protected. So this is the application that we just built together. If you want to learn more around the topics of design and development, please share and subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. Thanks a lot, guys. See you in the next one.